Hi, welcome to the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your honest and noble host. Today we have Ashraf Aboul Yazid. He's a poet and writer in contemporary Egypt, born on March 13th, 1963. He's the editor-in-chief of the Silk Road Literature Series. He worked in cultural journalism for 30 years, authored and translated 40 books. He was Man of Culture for the year 2012 in Kurdistan, Russia. The Manho Prize in Literature 2014, the Republic of Korea, Arab Journalism Award in Culture in 2015 in the UAE, President of Asia Journalist Association since April 2016. Some of his 35 books are translated into languages ranging from Korean, Turkish, Persian, English, Sindhi, Spanish, and Malayalam. Thank you for joining us today, Ashraf. How are you today?
Thank you. It is too early. I hope it is going well by starting with you.
Excellent. Yeah, it's late here. It's 11 p.m. right now in Houston, Texas, but I'm good. I'm glad to be talking with you this evening, and so hopefully we'll have a great discussion and start things off. I guess I'll ask you, what are the poetry circles like in contemporary Egypt?
You know, we had earlier some sort of generation classification of poets. I mean, poets who are related to classic poem, poets who are going after those pioneers. And now we have a good and strong effect of the prose poem in Egypt. I mean, especially in the last decade after January 11, too many voices have come with new version of writing poetry.
Mm-hmm. So is there like a specific elements to that new style that you recognize?
Yes, they are what you can describe. They are seeking a sort of identity. This
Right.
identity was actually vague, whether they are going after the fathers of writing poetry or they are making their own poem. And because of social media and this rush of writing online poems and so on, too many poems have come to the scene, but they are not expressing the poetry anyone who is interested in literary situation looking for. It is only personal, let us say, personal signatures of what is happening. It is not going after the poetry we knew and we studied or we wrote.
Do you think that's because these are a younger audience and a younger set of writers, or is it because there's a new sort of spirit emerging from maybe past issues, historical issues that are coming to light? Or
you are right. There are many let us say reasons for having such a scene. One of the reasons is the lack of good poetry in growing this taste. I mean, in schools, maybe in secondary schools, even in universities, they, in literary sections, they don't teach the Arabic literature or the foreign literatures in the same way we like for. They only got texts that maybe don't help to you to like literature. So the lack of education is number one. Education is not only writing, but it is for testing, for criticizing, or for accepting and understanding. This is one. Second, second, that the reason for writing, people are writing maybe like a fashion. They want to write, they want to be poets, they want to be writers on screens and on magazines and so on. So if this is a sort of fashion, a sort of showing, not expressing, it is not good. Third thing that we had, I think this is in every country, but in Egypt, we have two types of writing, classical and colloquial. And the writing of poetry, it is not needed to be classical or colloquial. It needs to be poetry first. So what is stage is given for the vocal, for those who can affect audience. And this, of course, too loud music and not certainly not deep enough to consider it as a real poetry.
Right. I think that's definitely happening here too in the United States, and I think I've talked to a lot of people globally, and it seems to be quite a big movement going on globally, especially among younger audiences. And I think it's interesting that it's happening. It seems to be global. I don't know where it came from exactly, but it kind of emerged out of somewhere. It didn't come out of a vacuum, obviously. So what could journalism and creative writing have in common?
Uh, Maybe before Corona, I would tell you that it is going open to the world. They were dreaming of traveling, dreaming of expressing themselves in other languages, of course, by translation and going to festivals and so on. Now, after getting interested in translation and travel with online culture that we are expressing now, online culture, they want to involve themselves in such online activities, festivals, seminars, ceremonies, and so on. So this is what they are, let us say, what they are focusing. For example, this year, International Book Fair of Cairo had its all activities online. I mean, I went, I recorded my poems, and they were broadcasted yesterday. In the past, we used to go to the location, have real audience, not only camera TV, but that was good. When you have audience, when you have face-to-face interaction with people to listen to you, to express their feeling. Now you are going to enclose the studio, and this is aftermath of Corona, going online for everything.
Right. Still a little bit of traveling there. You can travel straight from your house now. You can just sitting like I am in my apartment here and just talking to someone in Egypt, live, and it's interesting. It's not quite a substitute for seeing some of the sights and the beauty of every country that they offer, but it's definitely interesting to talk with people across the world.
Of course.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of awards and accolades behind you. Do you feel like that fuels your creativity, or does it hinder it in any way? Sort of be like almost like a public figure of sorts.
If you talk about my works, you mean what I wrote, or
awards? Like you for your work, for various things like journalism.
Yes. Basically, I devote most of the time during the last 2 decades to travel. I traveled to almost 35 countries, and I wrote about them. And I had the chance to meet intellectuals. I had a TV program to introduce icons from other cultures who are interested in Arabic culture in my TV program, The Other. And this Other had some 50 countries guests, whether they were visiting Egypt or visiting Kuwait, where I worked before, or those whom I met in my travels. So imagine meeting tens or dozens of good persons who talk to you, and I had a good archive of that. I like it. but it is also was one of my missions to make such a bridge between the cultures, Arabic culture and other cultures.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. So that something you're dedicated to is building bridges and across boundaries that people might not have understandings of each other, and your work is dedicated to bringing in more understanding of your culture and maybe even understanding others, a little bit better. That's quite fascinating. So what, you're editor at Silk Road Literature Series. What style did you
Yeah.
look for in the series? What kind of work do you take on, when you publish?
Yes.
Is there anything you look for specifically?
Yes. Basically, I wanted many cultures to appear in Arabic, or many cultures to go together between two covers. And the recent product of this is this anthology, The Mediterranean Waves. This
Okay.
Mediterranean Waves, 70 poets from the Mediterranean and beyond who participated by writing poets. And with
Mhm.
every poet and poetess, we have a picture of a boat. This boat was a product of 25 artists who gathered in Albrolus International Bienal for painting on boats and walls in Egypt.
Mhm.
And I took those photos with the poems to make these collections. And of course, in full color, I give it, sorry, I give it free
Very nice.
online. Now, anyone can read it free. And for those who wanted to collect a paper, like old-fashioned people like me, I printed I printed some sort of souvenirs copies, hard
Mhm.
copies to be collected.
Okay. Interesting. Is there any kind of specific style of poetry that you like to publish specifically, or?
We had some sort of themes at the very beginning of this anthology, because in the Silk Road literature we have two types of uh, publishing series. First series, books from different, maybe I translated an English volume of poetry from India for Himan Devaj, for example, or for a Korean poet. I also, through English, I translated for two koan from Korea and Cho Oh Hyun. This type of series. The other type is collecting in one volume different voices. One, it was in February. So we had in February this love Valentine Day.
Mhm.
So it is anthology of love. And in summer, we had summer anthology. In Mediterranean, we have poets from the civilizations and cultures of the Mediterranean. And before that, we had Asia Sings, which also collected works of Asian poets and poetesses from Asian countries, almost 70 poets. And this was 444 pages. The other
Mhm.
one was almost 300 pages. So
Mhm.
now I can say that this, when you go through them, you will know the scene, the poetic scene now in such Mediterranean culture or Asian culture and so on. It is some sort of making bridge between voices and let them meet together in one, let us say, festival,
Mhm.
live festival in hand.
Interesting. So we talked a little bit about how poetry has changed. How have you found that the world of journalism has changed in the last 30 years you've taken part in it?
Actually, when you refer to generations, early generations, they were talking about the myth, for example,
Mhm.
methodologies and great philosophies and Now it is going back to details. Every poet has to express himself, his details, his life, his own experience. It is not taking from books, it is taking from daily life. This is the great or the mega change. But I am telling you that this is not enough. What has to be is change itself in language. Vocabulary is everywhere, but you cannot read a vocabulary like a poem because it is written in words and letters. No, you need to invent your own poetic language. And this can be for someone from Muslim country, can be referring to the Holy Quran, for example, to borrow some phrases and so on. And also it can be from someone from a village in the Delta in Egypt to bring the land and the earth and the farming vocabulary in his poems. I mean, every poet and each one has to invent his own vocabulary and his own imagination.
I think so. I think that's definitely part of the poetic creation is creating a world of your own through language. And I think that you're right. I mean, it's maybe because most of the poets writing today are very young and they're not experienced in the art of creating a full world of their own, out of their own experiences. They rather would just write, confessional sort of style or identity politics or whatever else. And so I think you're right on definitely catching into something there about the creating your own world through the language, new languages, and the various what do you call it parlance or whatever of each kind of you have the agriculture, different sectors of life, and you pull from that. And you have Virgil, for instance, who wrote the Georgics, and it's very pastoral. And then he writes an epic poem that's very not really militaristic, but it's adventurous. So you have these different worlds he's creating, and I think it's lacking a lot of imagination. A lot of poetry right now is lacking the imagination to be able to create these broad worlds from language. And I don't know what the style is. I don't know where it's coming from. I've been curious about it for a while. Because it just kind of came out of nowhere, right? I mean, it just seems to have exploded in the last, few years, really. So, speaking of language, do you find any difficulties translating from Arabic to English? Is there like a cultural divide that you have to conquer to sort of, accomplish that feat?
For regarding my translations, some of my books have been translated into different languages. English is one of them, but novels also were translated in other languages like Sindhi, like Malayalam in Kerala in India, South India. The population of Kerala is almost the same of Cairo, of Egypt. And also Persian, Turkish, Korean, Spanish, and German. Lastly, my latest volume was translated into German. But I would like to tell you something about translating from other poetry, other culture to Arabic. I was interested, and I'm still in the Korean poetry, because it is not only different vocabulary, but it is almost the atmosphere. And by chance, the three poets I translated were in some time of their lives were monks. They lived in temples. They used to be some sort of those people who practicing the Buddhism and so on. So when you go to this poetry, you will realize the vast difference between what we have in Egypt and what Korean had, in different generation. Manhi lived in early 20th century, and Cho Oh-hyun just died 2 years ago, and Ko-on is living now between us. The three of them were monks, and the three of them had this kind of common language. You in Egypt, you will not find someone who is talking about the frog or following its jumping from one lake to another or expressing the freedom. You will not see those who are describing the shadows or fogs atop of mountains, and they are not hasty. What we have in Egypt and in modern life is chaos. It is sort of crowdedness. It is noisy. This thing is different in Korean poetry. You will not find that. Maybe in modern voices, some people will write that, but the common thing between the writings I translated of Korean poems were this kind of giving sight and thought to what they are seeing, not relaxing, but giving enough time to go for deep vision.
So would you like to share some poetry with us?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. This is the New York Parrot Literary Corner, and I'm Dustin Pickering. We're going to have some poetry out of Egypt today. It'll be wonderful to hear.
A street in Cairo. The man who returned home in his short break doesn't have but 2 days. A day for his arrival and a day for getting ready for departure. A day to cry on seeing her, and a day for her to cry on the farewell scene. A day to open his arms for friends, and a day for hugging their mirage. A day to tell them about the war, and a day for their tales of the war's victims. A day for life, and a day for an eternal death. The man who returned home in his short break remembers when the war started, they put targets on his eyes. They closed his mouth with the tank nozzle, and how he died before smelling the gunpowder. The man who returned home in his short break is welcomed by a street in Cairo and 2 sidewalks, where he poured the distance between them, the sands of his exiled, deserted body, counting the papers burned in the lost wars, under the fire and light pools. The man who returned home in his short break is similar to this street, where the procession of sadness pass, leaving nothing but pain. A street in Cairo, deserted for 2,000 years, full of dried trees and people, filled with a mixture of mud and bones. But it always looks like a river, as life looks like death. The man who returned home in his short break is just a street in Cairo, with balconies of despair, with lost war dancing inside him, with feet sinking in blood and dead bodies, those killed ones that deep in his heart after finishing their rules in the news. The man who returned home in his short break is seeking a vision. in the hand spread between two cities, with lines sketched by years made of sands and winds. The man who returned home in his break is asking, how many lost wars will be enough?
What inspired that? Was there some kind of event, or
it is not event, it is a reaction of someone who is away from home, and he has only short time to live. Away from whom you cannot live because you are not a citizen. You are not only a traveler, but working in some foreign country. You are not like the citizen of that country. So you are seeking your citizenship when you come home, but this citizenship is not full, is not complete, because you cannot enjoy it. You will only suffer of being strange, whether you are at home or away from home. This is the problem. It is like one poem. It's about prisoner. A prisoner is asking the guard of his jail, who is the prisoner? We are only separated by the same bars. So the one inside or the one outside, who is the prisoner? It is not only me, the prisoner, or the guard. Actually, we are both, because if there is a dictator, he has to be alerted to keep his prisoner inside. And the prisoner is also worried because inside he cannot free himself. So this is the situation. It is a mixture of struggle and annoyment or non-comfort, or seeking identity and seeking whom. This is the question.
Interesting. That's a fascinating analysis. Would you like to share another one with us?
Yes, please.
Looking forward to it. That was an excellent poem. That first one was very nice. Lovely.
Thank you. A map. This is a series of maps.
Okay.
First map is a map of a spotlight. The only spotlight is seeking for two eyes, hurt by darkness. It is seeking for eyeballs engraved by the darkness to read 1001 texts. It is seeking for a knife to kill the night with. It is seeking for a star to get it melted in a deserted glass. It is seeking for a map of love. A map of the river. And now, because of Egypt is suffering about her eternal river, so this could be the one. A map of the river. My river is thirst for waterfall. It is crawling, searching for its tributary. It is searching for a valley to cross, expressing love and temptation. The river is searching for you to dive into his mouth. A map of the city he left. The boy will return looking for the house of his neighboring girl, but he will only see the dry roses on her balcony. He will knock at the door with no answer but of sleeping bat that tells him the heresy of death. Despite the shades thrown by the concrete forests, he shall search roads around the house. The signs of love, they once engraved in tree trunks, might be still there. Despair shall sleep in his eyes on the abandoned threshold as he was looking for the gates. leading him out of this labyrinth. But he forgets the password of survival and becomes a statue in a legend. So we are surrounded by buzzwords we always forget.
Interesting. What other poets do you read who inspire you?
Recently, I being editor for the Asian in Arabic and this Silk Road literature anthology. So I am open to read all modern voices. But for classical one, I am interested in, earlier I had this, as we studied T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and also later this Seamus Heaney, because of some sort of similarity I am seeking for. This is what I'm reading in my country and outside. But in classical literature, I was interested in reading Amal Donqel, Egyptian poet, who lived in 70s, and he is one of the icons of revolution and the one who is famous for saying no for the system or for the dictatorship. And also from outside Egypt, I had readings for Al-Sayyab from Iraq and Al-Maghut from Syria. These were the three of my classical literature in Arabic voices.
That's it's quite fascinating. I like your style quite a bit. It has it's very has a little bit of a formalistic element to it, but it's very free flowing at the same time. So I really like that about hearing the way the poetry you read. Maybe you could read one more if you'd like to.
Yes, please.
Maybe if you want to read one in Arabic too, if you could do that.
Okay. Permit me to bring out that book, please.
Okay, sounds good. You're watching the New York Parrot Literary Corner. We'll have Ashraf Aboul Yazid in Egypt. Today he will read us a poem in Arabic when he returns, and we will be listening to him in this wonderful program, the unique voices all across the world for the New York Parrot Literary Corner. And here he has returned, and he will read us a wonderful poem in Arabic so we can get a flavor for the language, taste of the language.
قطار يعبر الصحراء. A train crosses the desert. البلاد التي تشبه قطارا يعبر الصحراء ساحبا وراءه توابيته المكيفة تلون نهديها الشمس بالرماد وتصبغ جسدها بالمروج التالفة تصرخ بين محطتين من السراب ووهم من الأرصفة في أحشائها سنصارع خيباتنا نزين سوآتنا المزيفة وفي حقائبنا تبول دراجونات الغربة على ما تبقى من أجسادنا الراجفة سنلعنها طويلا ونملأ بالبصاق ألف منشفة ومنشفة لكننا لن نغادر القطار ولو استطعنا أن نوقفه. This is a poem in Arabic, and to make it a little understood by you, I will read it in English.
Sounds good. We're going to hear the poem in English now. Wonderful poem. Sounded good. I love the sound of the language. I love hearing different languages. It's really a unique experience.
A train crosses the desert. These countries look like a train that pull the air-conditioned coffins as long tail. They look like a lady with a dusty breast burned by the sun, with a body painted by dried gardens. A train that cries between every two stations when pavements are made of mirage and illusion. In its stomach, we struggle, fighting our defeats to beautify our fake organs. The dragons of estrangement are urinating in our bags on what was left for our frightened bodies. We are insulting those countries and spitting in 1001 towels. But we are not leaving the train, even if we were able to stop it. This poem actually was taken along with another one to be in a Pakistani film, having the same title. And this Pakistani film, so far for the last 1.5 years, has been shown in 7 festivals. The next one will be in Kazan. Kazan is one of my favorite cities. I have visited many times. It has a good international film festival, and I am happy to have my poem in a film to be shown there. It's a like of a message to the city when I'm not able to visit it.
Oh, excellent. It's a very interesting poem, and it's has a little bit of a dark undertones, but it also had and some sad undertones. But it's a very beautiful, unique poem. I really enjoyed hearing that. It was a just wondrous poem, and I loved hearing the language. I loved hearing the Arabic version as well. So thank you very much for sharing that. My next question is, what do you believe all poets share in common? As far as
If
being
you
poets,
ask,
as far as poetry.
They need to be stars. They need to be like say missionaries. They like to be ambassadors. They like to be more than their own self. They want to go beyond themselves. This is, I think, poets are not only interested in themselves only. They want to go beyond themselves to share what they feel with others. Otherwise, they will write and keep poems in drawers. They will not read or write or publish. So first thing, the poet and poetesses are seeking to go beyond themselves. This is a common between poets. But I believe that what is needed more for poets, whether they are old, young, beginners, or matures, I want them to read, because without reading, actually, you will not know where are you standing, whether it is the language or it is the imagination, or you cannot criticize others. You need also to criticize yourselves in the under the spotlight of others. So this what I needed more to read others and to read the world, and to go not only the poet now is not only interested in reading literature. He lives in the third millennium, so he could be a scientist, not only a philosopher, but he could be an engineer. And this also will lead him to invent something in writing the poem, whether it is abstract or natural one. Actually, he needs more than being a writer or being a man who are using letters and words. He needs to be someone who are using everything around him.
That's an interesting answer. I think that's true. I think especially, that we want to be beyond ourselves. We want, it's a very human experience to want to, come out of yourself a little bit and learn about the world, learn about other people, and sort of become less of a flow into the world per se. I think that's an interesting observation, that especially poets are attuned to a kind of I don't know, cosmic consciousness. It's where they feel like they need to be beyond just themselves and more helpful in the world. And it's a very rare trait now, I think, to people that are actually willing to go the extra mile and do something for humanity rather than just for their sake of their fame or their glory or something like that. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. So we have a little time if you want to maybe impart some words of advice to fellow writers, or say some thank yous for people out there that you find that have inspired you, or that you would like to just give a little, nod of the head to.
Yeah, I give my daughters advices, but
Mhm.
I'm not good enough to follow if they are doing or not. But let me tell you about my advice to myself.
Okay.
Uh, because as a man who used to be a traveler and known as a traveler to those many countries, it is difficult to stay at home or stay in the country. So I invented another travel, which is traveling inside the country itself.
Mhm.
And this will encourage me to write, because I need to write about travel. So if that was not available, going away, let us go to discover something inside, because it is like travel itself. You are not traveling places, you are traveling yourself.
Mhm.
So if you are going, whether outside or inside, you are discovering yourself. So I am advising readers, writers, poets to rediscover themselves from time to time.
Okay. Excellent advice. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ashraf. It's been
Thank you.
wonderful talking to you, learning a lot about Arabic culture and the poets in the world and so forth. We've learned quite a bit from you, I think, and so we're going to be doing another show tomorrow. And thank you for joining us. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your host. And today we had Ashraf Aboul Yazid, and he discussed quite a lot of interesting things about poetry with us. If you watched the program, thank you very much to our viewers. And hit that subscribe button. You need that subscribe button. We need to get you on there. And we need everybody out there. We're looking for 1 million subscribers. So share our content, talk to others about us, share our flyers. And we're also looking for donations to anybody out there who has a little extra spare change. You want to just do something to promote the arts. That would be paypal.me/nyparrot. And that will be on our YouTube channel list under the video if you're interested in donating. Anybody out there can donate. If you're watching the program and you like what you see, feel free to send us a little extra money. And we're doing an anthology. We'll be due out in August. It will be from our former guests and people who have worked with us and in the past, and we'll have some more anthologies coming out in the future. Wow, thank you for showing that. Uh, what
Yeah,
what is
thi-
this?
this book was released today,
Oh,
and
wow.
I just came from the signature for this book. It is Days of Damascus. It is Assyrian travels, and it
Okay.
is published in Amman in Jordan. I received it today.
Oh, thank you for sharing. It looks wonderful. Hopefully, we'll get some people out there to take interest in that. And thank you very much for sharing it with us. And again, thank you for joining us on the program. And this has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. And subscribe, tell others about us. Everyone out there, we need your help. We need 1 million subscribers. We'd love to hear from you also if you want to be a guest. Literary Corner at New York Parrot newyorkparrot.com, and that's all one word, Literary Corner at newyorkparrot.com. This has been Dustin Pickering, and I am your host at New York Parrot Literary Corner. We will see you again tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ashraf, for joining
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
Thank you.
afternoon.